So we went without electricity or heat for 7 days.
Recently.
Not recommended, probably. Would you recommend it?
Come on.
No, we would not recommend this. So where we live in Canada, we get occasionally these things called ice storms. Do you want to explain what this is? I feel like people need to know what this is.
It's where rain falls from the sky and immediately becomes ice everywhere it lands.
Yeah, and
we were not expecting to be out of power for 7 days.
Yeah, and freezing rain like that happens occasionally. Like,
has that ever happened in your lifetime?
Not that bad. Not that bad.
Not the freezing rain, the power being out for 7 days.
No, definitely not.
Okay.
And when you hear about this type of storm, it's not immediately apparent how bad they actually can be, but the ice will build up on branches. I have a picture of this where it's like a couple centimeters almost of ice on a very tiny
but
branch.
Most people might think of inches.
Yeah, I don't know, like half an inch or I don't know, something like that. And what happens is it starts to weigh down the tree branches, and then eventually they start to snap. And the other thing it collects on are
hydro lines.
Power lines. In Canada, we call it hydro.
Oh.
It's a lot of it is hydroelectric. But yes, power lines and power poles. And then eventually those start to snap. And not just in a small area, in a pretty widespread area. So
there were almost 2,000 snapped power lines, power poles in our region. It was a little unsettling driving around when the rain stopped and we drove around. I'm not sure we've ever seen a natural disaster like that in person.
Yeah, for sure.
Seems like not a big deal to go out without power for 7 days. But in Canada, when it's below freezing every night and you need somewhere to sleep and you need fresh water and hot water, it was a lot to think about.
Yeah, it was.
Of course, we were thinking about coffee as well.
Yes.
Which was not a survival need, but a necessity.
And you were also asking us about coffee as I was posting about this crazy situation on social media. But before that, we didn't actually even realize the first day how bad it was actually going to be. It was kind of raining. There was ice building up on the trees. It actually looks kind of pretty in the beginning. And then power went out at our house on Saturday morning, day one. And we know people who work in the industry, and they said, prepare for like a 6-hour outage, might be less. So we kind of just lapped it off on the first day.
We were not prepared for 6 to 7 days.
Yes. And, the 6-hour mark came and went, and it was clear that things were starting to get a little worse, not better. So we went over to a friend's house, and they still had power at the time, and we just went there to kind of stay the night because they had heat too. So when we were getting ready to go over to their place, they're good friends of ours. Of course, we're thinking, how are we going to make coffee in the morning? And this was something that I thought might be fun to share. We're out without power. I had thought, okay, we're really prepared for this. If this ever happens to me, I know exactly what I'm going to do. So I got a little coffee kit together to go over there, and we're going to share with you how we actually made coffee over the 7 days, and we would love to hear what you would do if you were in the same situation as well.
Because we didn't do some of the things that we thought we would.
Yeah, and we got surprised.
We make about 2 coffees a day. We each have about 2 coffees a day. 1 morning coffee and then 1 mid-morning or early afternoon coffee.
Yeah, I usually have a little more than that.
I feel like we should acknowledge this. It would be considered a natural disaster, but our region is also very fortunate. We had minimal damage to housing, minimal lives lost. There were a few people, but overall, we are returning to normalcy fairly quickly. There's a long, slow cleanup that's happening, but overall, we're just really grateful and thankful to be able to turn the lights on and heat our house. It was wildly difficult to live without power for 7 days.
Yes.
I would have thought it would be a lot easier than it actually was.
Totally.
Especially in Canada when it's when it's below zero, when it's minus 5, 10
below freezing.
every night, below freezing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, below zero is below 32, depends on how you measure.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a lot more difficult than we expected.
Yeah. So this was the coffee kit that I got together. This is pretty close to what I would normally travel with. This is the Stoke and Alpaca travel case, Sidekick. I have dreams for a better travel solution for one day. That's a whole other video. And in here is...
This is for the first night where we slept at a friend's house.
Yes.
We thought they might have power still. It went out.
Went out that night.
In a strobe light party. It was the craziest way I've ever seen power go.
Yeah.
Anyway, they lost power around 9 o'clock at night, so we made coffee without power.
Yeah, and we were prepared. We had the Lumberbird. we had the Fiorenzato Pietro, and this is a little extra, but I also brought the Comandante C40 because, you know, depending on the coffee, I like to sometimes use different grinders for different coffees. And I thought this is going to be great. This is going to be our coffee making system for as long as we're out of power, no issue. And the first morning, it was pretty great.
Yeah,
I brought some nice coffees. We figured it out. But yeah, this worked well for the first day, I would say. And then later that night, we came home and we kind of started packing in for the night. Our house was cold, but we made the best of it.
We slept on the living room floor with all of our children and little twinkly lights.
Yeah,
it was
bundled
cold,
up.
But it was fine.
Yeah.
It was cold, but it was fine.
Yes. Then we got up the next morning and our sink was still full of dishes. And the only hot water was water that we would heat on our camping stove. Actually, would you grab that and pull it over?
This little thing.
Yeah.
I can set it up.
Yeah,
You
okay.
keep talking.
Obviously kind of time consuming to heat any water. I think I actually made coffee on the bird once and realized, like, once I had finished and just cleaning it, I realized that was going to be
Pain.
a big pain when you have no electricity ongoing to kind of even just heat water to clean stuff. And that was when I started to see my coffee enthusiast worldview starting to crumble a little bit because I was like, I love this. I'm not sure I'm going to want to clean this several times a day for as many days as we're going to be out of electricity. And by that time, it was starting to become obvious that this was a disaster on a bit of a regional scale for sure.
As we would drive around, we started realizing, this is not going to be solved in a few hours or a few days.
Yeah.
Maybe not even this week.
So then we put this aside, and I had actually gotten some instant coffee.
Emergencies.
Well, that's why I keep it. I always try and make sure that I have some of this around just in case, like, you know, if I'm traveling or I need to get somewhere super early in the morning and something doesn't work right, then I always have a backup, or you have a backup.
These are really great.
This instant coffee is from the Angry Roaster. It is really good specialty coffee in instant format. Should we make this right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after we did that night at home where we were all sleeping on the living room floor because the house was pitch black and cold, we ended up driving out of town, a couple hours out of town, to visit family in Burlington, Ontario, which is actually where the Angry Roaster is.
Yep, pretty close.
Yep. So we bought a whole bunch of these. Thank you, Mel.
Yep. I think we bought like 10 boxes of it.
And then used these all week because there was minimal cleanup and we could reuse the same mug and just fill it with hot water again.
Now, they had electricity there.
Oh, in Burlington they had
Yes.
electricity, but then when we came back home, there was still no power, and we needed to be home to check on our house and make sure the basement didn't flood, which is another dynamic.
Yeah.
But then when we came home, we started realizing just how many people were out of power.
Yes, hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah, and some of our neighbors were living in a house that was almost below freezing and had 3 feet of water in the basement, and so...
Dead cell phones.
Yeah.
No vehicle.
So at day 3, things start to get a little bit more serious. People don't have anywhere to store food that won't spoil. The temperature yo-yos outside. It's too cold in the house.
Yes.
And you can lose your way to communicate unless you have a vehicle and get gas. Gas started to get scarce really fast.
And the cell network started to go down also.
Yeah. So, because we had no cell network when we were trying to get home, we had no cell phone signal.
Yep.
And it was a sketchy situation.
At this point, it was kind of funny because I had been posting, you know, hey, this is day, 3, 4, no electricity for us. And, some of you wonderful people on the internet said, hey, we want to see your off-the-grid setups. Great opportunity for content with the Cafe Lot Robot, the Pico Presso, which is all true.
It is true.
But oh my word, it was so intense.
There were so many things to think about. We're also trying to be the helpers in the situation.
Yeah.
We did this dance of accepting help and offering help. We offered what we could. We received what we could. And it was really beautiful to see the way people came together to help one another. But there was a lot to think about and a lot on the go.
Yes.
We are still exhausted and recalibrating from that.
Yep.
Thankfully, now we're sitting in our warm kitchen drinking hot coffee. But it was a lot. It was a lot to think about.
Yeah.
And complicated coffee was not what we wanted to think about.
Yeah.
what you wanted to think about.
Yeah, totally. On one hand, it's like when you have all this great brew gear, you want to use it, but also, we were spending a lot of time driving around checking on people, and our church, somebody had donated like 30 generators to distribute, and we helped kind of get those all to the best places and keep them fueled up in some cases, and it was a lot. We would have instant coffee in the morning and then very often start cleaning up or hit the road. We would grab McDonald's coffee on the road, Tim Hortons coffee if you're Canadian, and it was amazing to me how quickly we were just grateful for coffee. And
any cup of coffee was
any
like
cup of coffee.
A comfort thing.
Yeah,
and
totally.
if it was like really roasty or dark or tasted like ashtray, which did happen sometimes. This is what I did. I put this in it. And
Yeah.
it made it great.
Yeah.
Not sponsored, just delicious.
Yeah, this coffee didn't need that.
This
but
coffee didn't need that.
Some of the other ones that we had,
Oh, we're not so good.
I'll just put it this way. It was at the point where to even have something hot in your hand felt like
was
a treat.
delightful.
All the homes were cold. It was a pretty bizarre situation to be in. So no coffee content was made that week.
Oh, and the kids couldn't go to school because none of the
yeah.
schools had power. So the kids were all
Yes.
out of school for a week.
Yes, we were very grateful to have good instant coffee available. Your parents loved it, but it was funny. There's that one video your mom sent us of her doing a pour
How
over.
she made coffee?
Yeah, in this mesh strainer. Like, we were doing what we needed to do. So I was trying to figure out how to answer this question. We want to see how you made coffee for 7 days with no electricity. And it was amazing to me how quickly we had bailed out from what I thought we would do, every day rocking something like the Weber Bird or even an AeroPress or whatever, and how quickly we went to, we just need to find some good instant and make this as easy as possible. We were even reusing the same mugs in like a lot of the time.
Now, if we hadn't have been able to get instant coffee, what would you do? Like heating hot water on here and then...
I think I probably would have just gone to whatever was the most efficient way. I probably would have hand ground something, but probably similar to what your mom would have done. Just do like a makeshift pour over.
Well, we don't have makeshift. We have a whole bunch of
Yeah, like maybe grab the V60 and kind of done a pour over, or an AeroPress maybe.
Yeah.
AeroPress is easy to clean. I might have gone that way, but yeah, the instant was a lifesaver.
So what
for
would
sure.
you have done?
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. What would you do in this situation? It was a crazy situation for us. We found our way through it in some kind of surprising ways.
Our yard still needs to be cleaned up.
Yep, but we wanted to see, what would you do if you were in that same position? It was definitely more surprising for me than I expected. My reaction to going without power or heat for a week. So we'd love to hear from you. What would you do in that situation?
I want to say, yes, it's April and it's still snowing.
Yep. We hope your next cup of coffee is fantastic, and we'll see you on the next one.